If you want to start collecting and playing Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, but you don't know where to start or what to buy, don't worry, because today I'm going to run through somewhat of a buyer's guide so you'll know exactly what you need to pick up and how you can save money along the way. The first thing that I would suggest you buy if you're wanting to start playing Elder Scrolls Call to Arms is the core rulebox. And this is a great foundation to get started with this game. There aren't any minis, but you've got all your starting cards, your counters, your tokens, and of course your books, which contain a rule book and a scenario book, which gives you a whole bunch of scenarios to play through. This costs £35 from the Modiphius store, and I'll link it, as well as all the other products I'm talking about today, down in the video description. Equally, if you want to save some money, if you do buy from the Modiphius store here in the UK or Europe, you can use code TABLETOPHUB to get 10% off your order, which will help you save a little bit extra, and a tiny kickback comes back to help support the content here in the channel. Now, one of the reasons why you don't get any minis with the core rules box is because there's kind of two very different game modes to play in this game. One is just a standard war game mode where you can play through scenarios and battle each other, building forces along the way. The other is a mode called Dungeon Delve, and this is where you'll explore and clear out dungeons as the Dragonborn to get loot, much like you would in the video game. Because of this, there's really two different ways of collecting the minis for the game, as your needs will be quite different. If you're wanting to go down the Dungeon Delve route and just play the game like that, you can pick up the Bleak Falls Barrow Delve set, which will start you off really well. It's got some skeleton archers, some Draugr, and a Draugr Overlord, as well as a Dragonborn mini. It costs £32, and when combined with the core rule set, you'll have everything you need to get going. You can then expand upon this over time with new adversaries by picking up additional adversary boxes. Things like the Skeleton Horde, the Draugr Guardians, and even the Dwemer Centurion and Spiders. And these kits range from £30 to £43. It's important to note though that with all of the releases, when you pick up the box of minis, you only get the minis. If you want to get the unit cards and the AI cards that shows how that unit plays, then you need to pick up the corresponding card pack for that chapter. And those cost about £30 on their own, so it can be a bit expensive, but the bonus in the card packs is that you'll get the cards for everything in that chapter, meaning you could easily substitute models even if you don't have them, while still having the rules to play them on the tabletop. The launch release cards are all in the core rulebox, as I said, so you don't need to worry about picking up a card pack for them. And those releases are the Bleak Falls Barrow set, the Stormcloak starter set, and the Imperial Legion starter set. And why are those extra kits important? Well, this opens us up to the other way to play the game that I chatted about. So we know there's a Dungeon Delve mode, but what if you just want to play this as an out-and-out war game? Well, you can pick up boxes to start building out a faction from the game in order to field them on the tabletop. At the moment, there are two main factions that have been supported with extensive releases, the Stormcloaks and the Imperials. But this is being expanded upon regularly, and each faction's releases follows a very similar formula. First off, you've got the core box for a faction. If you just needed one box for a faction, this is the only box you're going to need. It'll give you enough minis to field that faction on the table without anything else aside from the card pack. The core boxes retail from between £28 to £43 from the Modiphius store, the cheapest core boxes being the Imperial and Stormcloak sets. But if you want to continue expanding upon that force with more units and more minis and more variety, then there are two types of boxes that act as bolt-ons for your force, and they're what I would call leader boxes and unit boxes. They're both quite self-explanatory, but leader boxes contain new leaders for you to field with your force. For the Legion, there is the Imperial Officer set. For the Stormcloaks, there's Chieftain set, etc. Each one of these boxes usually comes with at least 4 to 5 additional minis in them, and they'll each retail at £39. The unit boxes have a ton more variety depending on how long the faction has been out for. These contain new units for you to field on the table to add variety to your force and help bolster your playstyle. With the Stormcloaks, this means having a box of skirmishers to harass your opponents with ranged attacks. These unit boxes are entirely optional, you don't need them at all, but once you're settled into the game and want to build out your force, both the leader and unit boxes are a great way to do that. The price on the unit boxes varies, but it's usually around the £39 mark, and again, usually adds an additional 5 minis at least. There are some additional sets that don't necessarily fit tidily into one particular faction. Boxes like the Adventurer Wanderers, Delvers, and Followers sets, these add some characters to the table that you'll recognise from the games. Then there are equally some minor faction sets, like the Vampires, the Dawn Guard, and others. You can absolutely field these as a faction on the table, but they just haven't been expanded upon as much as the likes of the Stormcloaks and Imperials. Aside from that, there are some terrain products for the game, but I don't think you need all of that to play if we're really only looking at what's totally essential. Just stick to the core rules box, start building your force, and then if you're looking for new content or looking to get some extra pieces like the word wall, for example, you're doing it because you think it looks cool, not because you think you need that to be able to play the game. Speaking of playing the game though, I've got a whole series teaching you how to do just that, and it's going to help you get this game to the tabletop. You can check that series out here, but in the meantime, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.